Congratulations. You are all about to be graduates of the Smeal Executive MBA. Aren't you glad you didn't wait a year to apply? You know, I love academics. But truth be told, it was a rough start. I failed kindergarten. Who fails kindergarten? You think failing kindergarten would be hard? Nope, not for me. I was highly disruptive in the classroom. I couldn't sit still. By first grade, I was diagnosed with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, or, as we all commonly know it, ADHD. Like, with ADHD, you probably know us, right? We talk too much, we fidget, we interrupt others, we're easily distracted. Oh, sorry. Here's the thing about ADHD. It's not a mental health issue. It's a learning issue. A learning issue. Having ADHD did not necessarily mean that I was destined for a life of failure. With the help of empathetic and understanding adults early in my life, I could learn new ways to face challenges and opportunities. I fostered loving relationships, excelled academically, and built a successful company because, and here it is, I learned to think, speak, and act differently. And over the last 18 months, you too have learned to think, speak, and act differently. And whether you realize it or not, you are making decisions differently than you did on August 12th, 2022, the day before your August residency here at University of Florida. So, let's be honest. 2 years from now, are you going to remember the discounted cash flow method to value a company? Well, except maybe if you're Conrad, since you're kind of doing it now. No. But you will be making better and more purposeful decisions. You will be speaking, acting, and thinking differently because of this program. You will be ahead of your peers who do not attend such a rigorous and amazing program as the Smeal MBA. So, that's the good news. Here's the bad news. That's not enough. For the next 15 minutes, I hope to convince you in order to succeed in today's business environment, and quite frankly, the world, you need something else. You need to lead with heart. Organizations have become more matrixed, global, competitive, technologically advanced. Gen Z millennials, they make up more than 50% of the workforce, and they want to feel emotionally connected to the work and the manager. You can no longer rely on your positional authority to get people to do what you want them to do. You need to influence them, and the way to influence them is through leading with heart. The other thing is that every employee and customer has a bullhorn, and they are not afraid to use it. So, as we know, leading with heart is good for business. I mean, you know it because you're in it every day. But leading with heart is also good for personal relationships. There's lots of research that shows that healthy relationships is linked to living longer, being happier, and being healthier. And who doesn't want that? So, let me give you an example of what I mean about leading with heart. So, it was 10 years ago, and I was among your predecessors, right? So, Penn State, Smeal, Executive MBA students, we were at the then ACE Center, which became Chubb, which now is Union League, and we were sitting among the students who were meeting their coach for the first time. I mean, you remember that night. It was November 18th, 2022 for you. If you were in my group, just think pumpkin beer. That might trigger your memory a little bit. Okay, so we're sitting around, and this is when the students are talking about, why did you join the program, and what maybe goals that I want to get out of coaching. And we get to this one student who we're going to call Jim, just to protect the guilty. And Jim says, I want to learn empathy. I have no empathy. My wife will concur. Now you can imagine the chuckles, kind of like we just heard, right? I thought, wow, what an incredibly courageous and vulnerable thing to share. So fast forward, I'm on the phone, we're having a coaching session, and Jim shares with me a situation where he completely blew it with his wife. Came across as insensitive, and he was struggling to try to figure out what did I do wrong and what could I do differently. And it was in that moment that I realized it wasn't that Jim lacked empathy. It's just like he just didn't know how to show it. It was also in that moment that an idea came to me that became a technique that would help Jim and many after him not only show greater empathy, but over time become more empathetic. I mean, more recent example, I was working with the leader of an auto manufacturer, and he came down from Japan to whip the US into shape. And needless to say, there was a little resistance with his style. So by the second session, I'm telling this guy, I'm like, listen, there's a technique, it might help. Now, we're all smart in this room. This guy is like ultra. So like you give him like a goal, and he'll come back with a 15 slide deck about the goal and this part of the goal and what he's done about it. And so he came back 2 weeks later and he said that was transformative. Let I'm not saying that's going to be transformative to you, but I am saying that it could be helpful. So let me just, if you will, walk you through the technique. So if you could, right now, just think of a conversation that you have to have later today, or this week, or this month. If it's contentious, all the better, but it doesn't have to be. And before, and if you can, even during the conversation, ask yourself this question. How do I want this person to feel during and as a result of the conversation? How do I want this person to feel during and as a result of the conversation? That's it. That's part one of the technique. It works because it puts a wedge of awareness between your thoughts and your words. It sets an intention to have a particular outcome. It reminds you that what you say and how you say it is going to have an emotional impact on the other person. And it reminds you of the ability that you have to influence other people positively and negatively by what you say and how you say it. And so, after a couple months, I asked Jim and I asked people, and I would ask you, to shift it just a little bit. From how do I want this person to feel, to how does this person want to feel during and as a result of our conversation. Now, that shift takes it out of the how do I want them to feel, right, which is cognitive and quite frankly egocentric. That's partly why it works. I always like to tell these very strong, linear, logical, rational problem solvers, metaphorically of course, when part of your brain is this big, the other part can only be so big, right? And so what this technique does, it helps them leverage the cognitive and help them access the affective. But this idea of how does this person want to feel is quite frankly, my friends, the very definition of empathy, right? Which is to understand and be able to feel what other people are feeling. So, as I mentioned, so empathy is critical in the workplace. Something else that's critical is humility. Now, you all took my Leading with R360, and you walked away with one, most of you, sobering question. Am I really that low in humility? Now, look, if you step back, you can kind of see it coming. right? When we're so focused on ourselves and our own success, sometimes humility can take a backseat. With that said, humility is key in the workplace. There was a study of 300 leaders across 70 work teams, and what it showed is that humble leader behavior, right, predicted success for the individuals on the team as well as the team itself. We also know that diverse teams make better decisions and solve problems better than non-diverse teams. If the leader exhibits humble behavior, it can close the gap a little bit if the team is homogeneous. So, I want to share with you a story that I had similar to Jim. Remember with Jim, when he was sharing with me the struggle he was having with his wife, and he was trying to really figure out about this empathy thing. And I could see in that moment his humanity. So I had a similar situation with a leader I was working with, we'll call Bob. So Bob led a department in a large organization. And, well, Bob came across as very arrogant. People did not like working with him. In fact, he was fired from his previous company, but I guess he brought so much to the table that this new organization, wanted him. So we just sent him to Jeff to fix. Right? And so I meet with Bob the first time, and I'm like, so Bob, why do you think people perceive you this way? Bob goes on to this 10-minute rant, blaming everybody else for his problems. And so finally, when he paused, probably to take a breath, I said, did anything you say in the last 10 minutes help you? He's like, no, probably not. So that was the start of a good relationship. At some point, we're walking down the street, and Bob shares with me that he was bullied as a child. And then he said something that I'll never forget. He said, I don't act like a jerk because I want to. I'm doing it to protect myself. That was the beginning of an opening for him to learn new ways to think, speak, and act differently. Now you're probably thinking, okay, but isn't humility kind of baked in at this point? No. Like empathy, humility too can be taught. Let me share with you one last story that can really lock in how empathy has helped many of my clients and, quite frankly, me become humbler. So 12 years ago, I had the privilege of hearing a talk by Dr. Nancy Park. And Dr. Park is an early pioneer in the field of positive psychology. Her study, her work, her research of cultivating good character and good virtues across countries is considered one of the most ambitious undertakings in the field of positive psychology. So Dr. Park showed us a story when she was in second grade. On the first day of class, she gets to class, and she noticed that the boy in front of her didn't have a lunch. Right? So the kids had all this stuff underneath the chairs. And so she was confused when she got home. She told her mom that the boy didn't have a lunch, and the mom said, well, the boy's family probably couldn't afford it. And so the next day, the mom made 2 lunches. And she said, get to school early before anybody else gets there, particularly the boy, and put the lunch underneath his chair. Now, could you imagine being this boy? You come to school and there's a lunch right underneath your chair. And obviously lunchtime comes, of course, he's hungry, he eats it. This continued every school day for months until the boy and his family eventually moved. Now, Nancy said that at some point the boy probably figured out how the lunches were getting there, but they never spoke about it. What an incredibly humane thing to do. So, doing secret acts of kindness can help you become humbler. That said, I can tell you that I definitely haven't reached the top of the humble mountain, right? It is a lifelong journey. But by incorporating secret acts of kindness into my weekly routines, it's helped me become more humbler than a few years ago, and it can help you as well. It can help you influence people because you're thinking, speaking, and acting from the heart. So, here you are, coming to a close of your EMBA journey. There's going to be a point where Dr. Crocker's talk on sunk cost or Professor Massange's discussion on the dark triangle will be in your rearview mirror. But I beg of you, please do not go back to thinking, speaking, and acting unconsciously. Right now, in this moment, ask yourself, what kind of leader do I want to be? What kind of leader do I want to be? Do I want to be an ego-based leader? Or do I want to be a heart-centered leader? And then, when you get home, figure out a way to keep front of mind something that's going to remind you to consistently think, speak, and act in a heart-centered way, both professionally and personally. And no matter what threatens to distract you, whether it's ADHD, social media, or something else, please remember to always lead with heart. Thank you, and once again, congratulations.
Jeff, this is a small token of our appreciation, not just for being here today, but for your friendship, your support, your mentorship over the years. Many of you have been to Jeff's home. Anytime we ask Jeff if we can do anything in his home or otherwise, the answer is always sure. How can I help? I mean, he practices everything he's talked about today. Many of you have been to his home. It's amazing. I mean, the view of the city, everything you've done for us over the years, we so appreciate.